after a while, it gets like, you'd get cold to it, and you just don't want to get close to people as you used to in the beginning, because you're just waiting for other shoe to drop. You're waiting for them to leave the rooms and to not live. And I don't ever take them off my Facebook. So if I scroll my friends on Facebook, I can't even tell you how many of those people are dead. And it's just fucking heartbreaking every time. So I grew up, born and raised here in Jacksonville, Florida. I had my mom and my dad and my 2 younger brothers, so the oldest of 3. And the home wasn't great. It was... my dad was a alcoholic and an addict and very mentally ill, and my mom is very codependent. She struggles with depression, and like, she has only ever known abuse. So just very 2 like dysfunctional people trying to figure it out together, and they weren't prepared for kids, but they kept having us. So like, it was a lot of chaos, a lot of yelling, a lot of insanity. You know, you don't know what it's like to live with like a mentally ill parent until you have one. I'm definitely still like unlearning some of like when I got sober, I learned to call them like survival skills of living in like a very like traumatic, toxic home environment. So like, I still am unlearning a lot of behaviors and ways of thinking about life and stuff that I had to learn how to do in order to like survive in this like very toxic environment to get my needs met. So I adjust as best I can, I guess.
Yeah. What's one like happy moment from your childhood that has stuck with you into your adulthood?
There's not many. I remember sitting in the living room with my dad when I was like in like 4th or 5th grade, and we had this like really long theological talk about like aliens and what's it called? Conspiracy theory stuff, and 9/11 is an inside job kind of thing. And like, I know that sounds very like random and not like necessarily like a super happy memory, but it was like a memory where I felt like me and my dad were like on the same page. We weren't at odds with each other. We were just like 2 people nerding at the same time over crazy shit. Because I'm just as crazy as he is. I'm just medicated. So that's one thing that I remember from like early, because I don't remember a lot of shit from when I was really young. I mean, I didn't know that my dad was alcoholic or a drug addict until I was much older. But once I learned what the hell that looks like, I look back at everything and I'm like, oh yeah, that's where my dad was drunk. This argument, my dad was high on pills. This, you know what I mean? Like, I can look back and see like, okay, my dad was insanely intoxicated like all the fucking time. Started when I was like 12, and my dad actually smoked pot with me for the first time. Me and my dad would smoke pot a lot together. We would drink a lot together. You know, his mental illness, like, knowing now, like, it really prevented him from like being able to deal with society. Like, he probably couldn't get anybody to sell him pot because he was fucking crazy, and they probably would be like, you're a cop. Like, I don't know, like, he's just too suspicious. So he, like, what I assume is what happened is he would give me money and I would buy him pot from like the people I went to school with, and then I would give him some of my money because I was like walking a dog. I was walking my neighbor's dog because she's old, and he would go buy me alcohol at the store. And so I'd come home with our pot, and he would come home with our alcohol, and we would trade, and we would just lock ourselves in his office all day after school and into the night and just drink and get messed up. It progressed like that, and then just like hanging out with the older crowd. I started getting into K2, which is also known as spice, and that shit is terrifying. It gave me psychosis. I believe that it like permanently, I don't want to say gave me permanent brain damage, but like it has permanently affected my mental health like for the rest of my life because of what it does to the brain on like a permanent basis. But I've healed a lot for sure. And then just like the drinking, and then eventually I did get into to pain pills. And that was where everything came like just fucking crashing down. You know what I mean? Like, I could not survive without the fucking pills, or else I was freaking the fuck out, because I would get so sick, and I was like very scared of being sick.
So at that point, how old were you?
When I started doing the pills, I was like 15, 16.
Wow.
Yeah. It definitely made me feel better. It did a lot of things for me. It made me feel cool. It made me feel popular. It like erased social anxiety. It like gave me a voice, because I always like would shrink in front of people. Like I just like mouse up. And it gave me a voice. It gave me a leg to stand on. And then it was an escape. It was escape from the like torture of my home life. And then I also was struggling with undiagnosed mental illness myself. Like, I'm bipolar, and that's a whole thing in itself. You know what I mean? Like, living in an undiagnosed mental illness is like not a good time. And so I didn't even know it, but I was treating my mental illness too, because my fucking head would be so loud and the thoughts were so insane, and like I had delusions and paranoia and like the psychosis from the K2, like all this stuff in my head. And like when I would get high, when I would drink, it would just like shut it down. And it stopped working once I got into the pain pills. A while into taking the pain pills, I had just been taking so fucking many that I built a tolerance to them. And I could take 20 or 30 a day and feel stone cold sober and feel all of my feelings and cry. And that is like the worst torture I've ever, close to it, but it's some of the worst torture I've ever experienced in my life. Is like, no matter how fucking intoxicated I am trying to get, it doesn't even work. And I'm like, I could be dying and ODing from how many I've took right now, and I feel absolutely no effect. But I was trying to die. I had many suicide attempts. I've been Baker acted many times. The last like 3 months of my addiction before I got sober, I was like taking more and more pills each day and like counting them, hoping that I wouldn't wake up the next day. Like, if I take this amount tonight, then I won't wake up tomorrow. And then I wake up tomorrow. I'm like, all right, well, if I take like 3 or 4 more today than I took yesterday, will I then not wake up the next day? And I just kept fucking waking up. So like, and I wasn't afraid of dying, because dying meant peace. You know what I mean? Like, when there's no other answer, when there's no other solution or like hope in your life, like, fuck, dying just sounds like the best way to go. It's not, but it felt like it. It fucking felt like it. I wasn't afraid to die, and I wanted to. I was brought to my knees because I got so fucking miserable that I looked in the mirror and I didn't know who was looking back at me, and that scared me. And I didn't want to live with alcohol and drugs anymore, but I didn't know how to live without it. I am not the same person that I was before I got sober, and I'm not the same person I was 5 years ago, 7 years ago, the day I got sober. Like, I continue to change and transform, and that just comes with like learning life lessons and stuff. And like, there are so many things I have not necessarily learned how to do, but I've learned a hell of a lot more of what not to do. But I'm really, really grateful that these changes have been made, because I was a girl on a death mission. I was trying to die every chance I got, and like, life is so beautiful today. Like, I just wish I could have told that girl, like, holy shit, just hang on. Life's gonna get really fucking beautiful. It's worth sticking around for. And thankfully I did stick around for it. Thankfully I was never successful trying to not be here anymore. You know, the longer you stay sober, there's like this phrase in recovery where it's like, sometimes you have to step over the bodies, or like you need to buy a fancy suit, because you're going to go to a lot of weddings and you're going to go to a lot more funerals. And that's been the fucking case, man. Like, you build such close relationships with these people in recovery, and then they don't stay sober, and they drop like fucking flies, and the door is ever revolving. Well, if you're really young and you have a drinking or a drugging problem, there is another way, and it's not easy. You're going to think, there's so much life I have left to live. There's so many parties I have yet to experience. how am I going to deal with wanting to go out with coworkers, or what about on my wedding day, or what about on my 21st birthday? And I dreamt of all of those things, all of these occasions, or, that I would want to get fucked up for. And I can genuinely tell you that I am very happy that I was sober on my 21st birthday. I'm very happy that I was sober on my wedding day. I'm very happy that I got sober as young as I did. It wasn't easy in the beginning. I still like craved that party lifestyle, and I felt like I was missing out on a lot getting sober as young as I did, because I would have like my younger coworkers and they would all go out for drinks and shit after work, or smoke pot outside of work, and I wanted to be a part of that. But I would just stand there with my cigarettes and my energy drinks, like I'm glad I got sober as young as I did, because there's so much life I would have missed. There's so much more of the house I could have burnt down that I didn't have to burn down. I didn't have to lose a career and lose, a husband, and lose, a house, and like all this shit that the old people talk about they had to lose and go through. 30 fucking years of drinking and drugging finally brought them to their knees. I didn't have to do that. You don't have to wait until you have this assload of consequences to get sober, to prove to yourself that you really do have a problem. I'd do it over again 1,000 times. I'd get sober at 17 1,000 times over if I had to, because I have been able to build such an amazing life. And I've made all kinds of mistakes, but I've not had to make a lot more mistakes that a lot of other people have had to make at this point in their lives. I got sober at 17, and I am now 27 years old. I have a career. I'm a business owner. I'm married. I own a home. I own a car that's not a Facebook beater off a marketplace. I'm happy. I have quality fucking friends in my life. I went to school. Like, I've done all this shit, man, and like, I've done it all sober. I celebrated my 21st birthday sober. I didn't have to drink on my wedding. We had a mocktail bar at my wedding. Like, I've just gotten to have so many beautiful experiences because I got sober so young. And most people have all of those first experiences in adulthood not sober, and then they lose all that stuff. And I don't have to worry about losing all that cool stuff. And it's not always about this. It's not about the stuff. It's about the happiness that I get to have.
What would you say matters the most to you today?
My happiness, my peace, and my freedom. I could give a shit less about the money. I give a shit less about the stuff. I don't need fancy things. I don't need fancy friends. I just want to be happy, and I want to have peace, and I want to be free to live my life, because those are things I never had until just a few years ago. I value those things above every fucking thing else, and I want to just feel like I can be myself no matter where I go or who I'm with or what I'm doing. I am very, very tired of living the chameleon life where I have to be whoever I need to be to fit into this circle or this mold. It's exhausting. I want to be exactly who I am no matter where I'm at. And I think people like that. I think people like me exactly for who I am. So it's all a delusion anyways, thinking I have to change myself to fit in, essentially.